Thank you very much for staying with us on the big issue. We are still discussing the upcoming yes and no votes, trying to make sense of what is happening, because it's been a week where there have been several seminars, political parties are meeting, actors are all over the country trying to sell the yes vote. The no vote is also busy on the road trying to sell their story as to why it should be no. And like I promised, I have to thank Dr. Nicholas Awotri, because he had to leave, but he's promised to stay an extra 10 or 15 minutes in order to take questions from Nick Bakpo and Sydney. So Sydney, your initial comments on this, and then we take it from there. Let's go.
Initial comments,
including your questions.
Then we can elaborate.
Okay, then let me go to Nick
I'll say
Bakpo.
back to it. What I just want to say is that I think these elections are a first step. Understand? They are a first step towards, I believe, the full realization of democracy within our system, because we are a young democracy, and so we started off with the partisanship at the head, at the national level, and then we decided to leave the local level non-partisan for obvious reasons, and we can clearly see why this is so, because of the kind of bitter nature of the politics we do, the winner takes all kind of thing. But we've also realized that we have to follow, good practice, global practice, where democracy is at the grassroots. You go to the UK, it's at the local level, and it is partisan, because the issues are local, the people are partisan, and it's more like a training ground for the grooming of leaders. So most of the time, if you look at the US, for example, persons who put themselves out for national elections until I think Donald Trump is the exception to the rule. Most people would have gone through the governorship, would have gone through the local Senate. So it's a training ground. Barack Obama was a senator, local senator, then he moved on to the national level. Before, if you are normally a governor, you use your track record as a governor to say that, look, when I was a governor, I balanced the budget, I did this, I did that. I think in Ghana too, it will be an excellent forum to groom leaders. So you start from the district assembly, you prove to the local people that you were a capable unit member, you were a capable district assembly member, and so you deserve promotion sort of to become an MP, where you then be able to defend your track record. And then you come to the national level. And Ghana has proven that the President Akufo-Addo was a legislator. He had a track record, and then he used that track record, became a minister, and stood for national elections. President John Mahama will tell you that he also has that same record, started from the local level and went all the way. I think it is the way to go. And it is also going to enhance the power of the local citizens, so that in my local area, when I pay my taxes, I can hold the district chief executive accountable for the kind of development that goes on in the area. Why is my rubbish not being collected on time? Why are my roads having potholes? Why is security lax in my area? If you come asking me for my taxes, what are you using my taxes for? Are you putting a police post at my area? Are you putting the street lights on? Are you giving me good basic education? So it is the first step, and I think that broadly the parties agree that there can be no good time per se to start this. We have to start it as a point. So in the long run, it is going to help. I can understand the fear of those who feel that, especially if you look at, for example, let's look at the security structure, where the district chief executive heads the DISEC. If you are not careful and you have information from national security before you realize in these days of WhatsApp, we might be having restricted information going out. So people must understand, and the laws must be strengthened. If you are elected and you swear the oath of secrecy and the oath of allegiance and all that, and you violate those things, you must be strict punishment for them, because you also cannot compromise the security of the state. But if we all think like Ghanaians, and if we are patriotic enough, we will realize that in the longer term and in the broader term, it is for our own good. It also will make our political parties less likely to go to sleep during the 3 years and then only activate themselves in the 4th year for national elections. Because if I'm like being a constituency executive, I will be active for the 4 years because I need to get candidates for unit level elections. I need to get candidates for district level elections. I need to get candidates for my local MP before I will come to my national elections to make sure that my presidential candidate is also getting elected. So broadly, I think the positive sides far outweigh any negative sides, and we can manage the negative sides if we think together as one.
Okay.
So those are my comments in respect.
Thank you very much. Sydney, quickly so that Dr. Awache can go away.
Dr. Awache, you are controlling my life.
He's the director of the
Good morning.
He's the director of the Local Government Institute. So he's all yours.
Book long.
No, proper.
I am a big advocate for decentralization.
Great.
Anybody who listens to me will know I've been talking about decentralizing for ages.
Yeah.
And I'm totally convinced that unless this country decentralizes fully, deregulates fully, devolves authority to that district level fully, we will never make any progress.
Good.
Our progress is completely stifled because of political interference in everything that is done in this country. And we need to cut away from it. Let the politics be local. All right?
Yeah.
Let the local district deal with its politics.
Yes.
And let's get on with it.
Yeah.
But I think that what we are doing now is a little far short of the full picture. Let me just give you my dream, and then if you want to leave, I think it will be appropriate. But there are some issues that I would like you to answer if possible. Number one, I don't see the sense that we have mixed up so many other things else with the yes-no issue. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why people don't understand what is being done. This morning, just as I was coming, my I don't know whether to call him my steward boy or my manservant, but my steward boy asked me whether he would have the day off to go and vote on December 17th. And I said, yes, of course. Why not? And he said, so how is he going to know who to vote for? Okay? And I tried to explain to him there are 3 different issues. When I got to the yes-no issue, he couldn't quite figure out what I was talking about. All right? Yeah. Because he's thinking that on 17th, he's going to vote for his district mayor. Yeah. So he wants to be clear to vote for the right person. And it took me a little while for him to grasp the idea that we are only going to say yes or no, and the yes or no means this. You see? So there's...
unity.
Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion on what we are going to do on that day. And I think that is wrong. I mean, the EC should have been a lot smarter and said, okay, day 1, if you want to, we'll do yes, no. Day 2, we'll do this. Day 3, we'll do this. So people can appreciate what is going on. Or else, just split the dates up and then we do the elections differently. Anyway, it can't be changed. So I'm just voicing out for something that cannot be changed. That's number 1. Number 2, it is not only Act 55 that has to change.
No.
The Local Government Act has to be amended, as you rightly said. And there's so much there that needs to be changed. If I had my way, at the district level, where we are going to have mayoral, we should vote for 2 persons on a proportional representation basis. And they should come out naturally from the voting. Out of those 2, one of them will be represented at national parliament. And one is your district executive. You need somebody at national parliament who is going to go and fight for your share of the resources that are required for your district development.
But is that not a conversation the elected official and the MP can have? If we say we are being mature about this.
You need to get the MPs out of development. MPs should not be involved in development at all.
No, but in the lobby policy, in the lobby process, sorry.
Then we should cut them from the ministerial part as well. So that
Yes.
then an MP is an MP. An MP has no
Making
business.
laws. Yeah.
Yes, and we have been
executive.
and we've been advocating that for a long time. That having an MP doubling as a minister, that doesn't give them the chance to concentrate, and we get too much confusion. You see, we have to think through what we are doing and bring a common sense approach to it. It's not everything that we should legalize and make complicated. This is simple. You have somebody who is doubling up, but I don't want to be diverted from the main issue. We focus on this, and my vision is somebody has to represent the district at national level so they can get their district assembly common fund, their 5%, making sure that it comes to them. Left to me alone, collapse the DACF administration. Let the District Assembly Common Fund administration disappear. Because at the end of the day, if you are collecting taxes and rates and property rates and things at the district level, what do I need a common fund to do for me? If the common fund's job is to seed me 5% of everything that I need, it's a formula. All right? It's a formula. You know, if you collect 2 billion, everybody has a certain proportion. The formula has been devolved, and it works in such a way that we have a combination, don't we? A combination of the population and the size of the district, and then we have the revenues that they collect, which biases them for more or less funds. Now we are going to leave, or we should leave, all those revenue collections at the district level. It should not go anywhere. If that be the case, then your district assembly common fund is more or less collapsed. All right? It doesn't apply anymore. So we need to look at the district assembly common fund law as well and change that. Okay? So now we are changing the act. We are changing the
DACF.
The local government act. We are changing the DACF as well.
You have 2 minutes, Sydney.
Now, for me, the biggest thing I think we should do, we need to get rid of regional ministers and regional deputy ministers. They have to go. You see, if your districts are aggregate to form a region, so if I've got the districts running themselves,
what do you need a minister for?
A regional minister for? He doesn't have a job. He's not going to be there to be running anything day to day. He's not relevant. He's not necessary. All right? DISEC is important, but RegSec is not important. So that should go. And then you will save some money at national, because you don't need to spend so much money on all these pompous regional ministers. So we get rid of that situation. So you are now looking at revamping the whole way in which we actually run district management. If we do it that way, and even that, this is just a small part of the way I think we should go. But there's so much more. There's so much more that we can cut out and which we can use. Are we going to allow the districts to make their own laws? Are we going to allow them to set their own rates? Are we going to allow them to do their own development? How much of national work should be centered around, let's use road development. National has to do the road network between the regions. Okay? So Ministry of Roads and Highways will be something that national will control. But urban roads and development and feeder roads is going to go to districts. So they should manage and control that. So when you do that, national again saves the money, because now they don't need to have people sitting there, chief executives sitting there running all of those institutions. And you can look at every sector of the economy, and you can cut until you have a leaner and meaner national government which can manage its budget better. Then you have to consider, are the districts going to make a contribution to national funding? Are they going to be asked to contribute in order for them to be able to get the benefit of management and technical expertise at national level? Or are we going to completely sever the districts from the national in such a way that district autonomy is completely sacrosanct and they can do whatever they want? Where is going to be the overlap between district and national? Is there going to be any? Should there be any? Right?
Okay.
But
Right.
you've got sensitive areas.
Yeah.
You've got security areas. You've got foreign affairs areas. You've got some parts of education for a national curriculum, etc., etc., etc. In education, can we afford to allow the districts to go their own way? Because you have a national policy of free SHS. So if a district decides that, okay, in our district, no free SHS, is that going to be accepted? How is that going to work? So all of these things, I think, have to be ironed out, as we go forward. Now,
Thank you very
thankfully,
thank
we are
you.
not going to be worried about doing any of this until 2021.
Yeah.
Okay? So we have at least one full year in
one full year.
2020 to be able to get this
Done.
done and working.
All right. Let me take some messages on this matter and then we can move on to our next topic. Some of them are questions. So, Doc, you answer these ones and then you can go away. Kwame from OEB, good morning to you. Says, good morning, Godfred and panelists. For me, I'm not voting. Why, Kwame? But if I were, it will certainly be no. I don't know how a yes vote will benefit the citizens. I hope they've been able to convince you. The politicians will always find ways to fool us, the people. It's about time we know the meaning of the votes we cast as people. Farouk from Tema says, good morning. And no vote will mean we are behaving like ostriches because already assembly elections are political. That's the point Honorable Achampon was making. It's time we lift the hypocritical veil and allow politicians to get involved. After all, we are looking for proper accountability from leaders and have a say in who steers our local affairs. Gideon Ayangari from Garu says, I think we as a country are going to institutionalize corruption at the local level if we vote yes. The elected MMDCs only think of how to win an election rather than how to develop their localities, which will lead to high corruption. Well, Ayangari, if they do so, in 2 years, you vote them out.
That's all.
That's all, Rather than having them there for 4 years, in 2 years, you can just vote them out. Hello, it is the mandate of Parliament to decide to allow us to vote for MMDCs. Fiscal decentralization can happen without political parties in our local government system. Let's vote no to political parties. Well, Prosper from Bolgata. Well, everybody has an opinion for Sydney. The political parties have not made politics attractive to many competent Ghanaians. To me, politicization of local government means abandonment of projects started by a different party. This is an opportunity to elect non-partisan leaders and prove to our politicians that their selfishness is our problem and nothing else. How many times have we seen an opposition party backing government policy fully in this country? The political parties cloud people's judgment and make truth impossible for their elites. Give us opportunity to elect from a bigger pool of competent people. This is from Caesar Kaba Kogoziga. Well, Caesar, if you listen to Dr. Nicholas Howard, he says anybody can put himself up to contest. You don't necessarily... Independent candidates are allowed. So if you feel there is somebody who fits that bill...
Parties don't work.
Yes.
Well, I will be running.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
I'll be running in South
Okay. All the best, Sydney.
for the mayoral seat.
Breaking
No, I
news.
will. I'm serious.
I know.
I don't do politics, but this one I'm going to
But
do.
as independent,
Well, I have to think about that.
Breaking news.
Maybe I'll go NDC.
Breaking news. So we'll work on that, Sydney. Kwesi Reynolds in Agona Dublin. Good morning. MPP may have gone to town with the... okay, I haven't reached this matter yet. Godfred, will these elected mayors be given immunity like the MPs? If yes, then I'm voting a big no. Elvis from Sakumono sends this one in. So these are the messages that have come through so far on the program. Now, on an academic friend of mine sends in a message and he says, on the matter of getting rid of regional ministers, Sydney, he says, we need them because our districts are too fragmented. And that's a problem because sometimes we need integrated development. Our development problems defy boundaries, and it's the region that can command joint planning and development. So that is what my good my good friend has sent in.
Minister.
Yeah, so that is what he has sent
You
in.
don't
So
need a minister.
let me just...
You can elect the
move on.
Just to explain that point, you can take the person who happens to be the mayor of the regional capital, all right, and he can be their coordinator and their leader for a period of 2 years. It's an elected position. If he loses his seat, the next person who comes in takes over. So you don't need to have another layer, all right, of bureaucracy in order to be able to execute your programs.
All right. Thank you very much, Sydney Kisley Hayford. Let me just go on to my second conversation.
Is it time? Can I react?
Yes, you can. Dr. Aochi, you are my guest. So
yes.
Go on. I'll give you a few minutes.
I think the question from Kwame that, yes, let's vote no. I think it's a frustration that many Ghanaians have with regards to the way the national politics is organized. And I think perhaps our central government politicians must look at the way they have conducted themselves and perhaps change. I think we may not need regional minister. I agree with you. I think that's why I was saying that the moment this constitution is amended, a number of our local government acts will have to go. The clause that makes the regional minister supervise the DCs or elected mayors, I think we'll have to go, because I can't see how an unelected officer is going to control an elected.
Absolutely.
No, so that will have to go. But we can still have the regional coordinating,
Position.
doing, partnership and trying to coordinate all number of this. But it's also possible that the association of mayors, because I think that is going to be a tool which will be used after the referendum. They will form association. In fact, this is the case that in many Latin American countries they did. They form association of mayors, and they became very powerful institution. And they used that to bubble up for changes in the fiscal decentralization that was in the favor of the central government politicians. If we don't, and I must emphasize that if we don't do anything about our fiscal decentralization, this amendment we are making will not make a difference at the local level. Absolutely. It will be the same. It will be the same system that we are going to have. And for this to happen, we need the civil society. We need institutions that are interested in local governance to begin to coalesce together, form a strong coalition that would negotiate. And so, Sydney, the issue of getting a second chamber or getting another representation at Parliament may not be needed if we have a very strong association of mayors. Because remember, for the centre to win or to become popular, they need the support of these local government politicians. And it's not an issue of the party trying to push them into line. No. Some of the mayors, when elected, will listen to their citizens or their community more than
there'll be a certain level of independence.
Yes. And so the autonomy, the local government can never be totally autonomous. Otherwise, then you are a state on your own. I mean, it's only Ethiopia which has in its constitution an ability to succeed and create your own state. So local government districts can never be autonomous. They will have some oversight responsibility by the center, but it is the area of policy. The ministries can no longer continue to be implementing projects at the local level. Their emphasis will be on policy coordination, new ideas, and that is why we don't need a large bureaucracy at the center when this referendum takes place, when this year's vote takes place. We need a smart senior civil servants who will be looking at policy and innovation and ideas. And the members of parliament to be shaping laws. The action for local development will be at the districts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nicholas Awochi. Let me talk about, I'm going to do some hardcore politics now, because this week we were minding our business when the NDC and their communications officer decided to put out a 10-page statement that featured 51 names of persons that they said were friends and relatives of the president. So they put that out. The following day, the MPP also came out and said, well, look, we are not nepotistic. This is not what we do. and you need to find a better conversation to have. Be that is may, it's a conversation that matters to a lot of people. So we'll take a listen to what the two parties said, and then I will take something from the Member of Parliament for Price, who is the pure MPP man here. Then Abu Seta Champo. We'll do some hard. He doesn't like the hardcore politics, but he will do hardcore politics today. So let's take a listen to the MPP and the NDC press conferences.
After our meticulous investigations into appointments made by President Akufo-Addo since the year 2017, we submit that the Akufo-Addo government is the most nepotistic government in the 62-year history of Ghana, and we dare say the world. Even Idi Amin Dada, the butcher of Uganda, Jem Bedel Bukasa, and Mobutu Sese Seko, the looter of Zaire, now Democratic Republic of Congo, will envy President Akufo-Addo's unprecedented brand of nepotism and clanism. Similarly, the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, and other key government functionaries have also joined the President in this race to the bottom. Taking a cue from their boss, they have joined the nepotistic practice of abusing the power to appoint various people into positions to satisfy their families and friends. Ladies and gentlemen, our checks have revealed that there are at least over 50 persons in the Akufo-Addo government whose appointments can be related to their families, friends, business, or close connections to Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia, his vice, their ministers, and other appointees. This unprecedented but unenviable practice, we contend, injures good governance and breeds corruption.
One would have thought that yesterday's press conference would have revealed how unqualified some of these appointees are, but none of them, or none of the issues we are discussing here happened yesterday. Is Kelly Gajapu not qualified to be on the board? What about Daniel Ogbami Tete as the head of GCE? What about Samson Agliko, who has been instrumental in the banking reforms? Charles Edubwahi is an asset to government, and so are the likes of Felicia Ashley and Yofi Grant, who helped the MPP, and they were all part in drafting the MPP's manifesto. These are the men and women of caliber who willingly left their lucrative jobs in the corporate sector to serve their country. So we are challenging the NDC that we want policy-based, ideas-based argument, not ranting and not making noise.
It's a public official.
So you had Sami Jemfi, communications officer of the NDC, and then you heard from Henry Anabuachi, who is the national youth organizer of the MPP in response to this matter. So, Honorable Setachampo, you're a member of Parliament for Price. You know the MPP well. They put out a very long list of persons they say are friends and family of the president. They challenged the president and said, well, you were president, when you were a candidate, you said you will come in and not do friends and family. And that is on record. The president indeed did say that he will not do that. But why is he acting differently and now trying to justify it? What do you make of this whole conversation about bringing in close friends and relatives to work for you when you win power?
All right, thank you very much, Gojo. You're asking me to discuss a subject. This morning on your set, I talked about interest. The president, when he was campaigning to become president, said a lot of things. He didn't only discuss family and friends. He said if given the opportunity, he would want to make senior higher education in Ghana free. The president said he would want to ensure that we have a very safe state. The president said he would want to ensure that we improve agriculture.
Yes, sir.
The president said that he thinks that our informal trade must improve. So he brought a commodities exchange. The president is doing a lot. My interest, as I sit here, is to ensure that the roads in my constituency are really constructed well. My interest, as I sit here, is to ensure that the conversation we have in this country benefits our people. The name calling, I've had it over 2-3 decades. It hasn't benefited us in any form, in any way. If I am supposed to mention names, I know people on the left, I know people on the right. Not necessarily in front, open front line. They are not in the front burner, but they are deeply involved. All right. Let me make a very clear admission here that it will surprise a lot of people.
Okay, do so.
Until President John Mahama became a president, Ibrahim Mahama was not NDC. And few people would know about it. It will surprise Ibrahim that I'm saying this on television. President Mahama is my brother. Ibrahim is my brother and friend. I've known them. Not from now. But you see, in Ghana, we have an adage that we say, and I'll use my mother tongue here now. Yes, your fruit, your pano, and a piano. If you live in a communal state like Ghana, where when I was growing, I grew up with my cousins. Or when I was becoming who I am, everywhere, I have cousins who are NDC. It's an idea. It's a thought that I wish and I want and you drive with. That is not the bread and butter matters that concerns us. Could you, if at the end of the month, this establishment do not pay you and you work for another month, would you be happy sitting and anchoring shows for us? That is what matters. So when people hit us hard about how the economy is doing and how the economy is not doing, it is of more credibility to me than just be mentioning names. It
So
doesn't pay anybody.
You don't feel
President
that they made a point?
President Mills had his brother Cadman Mills at the presidency. Must I go and discuss that? Is it not his closest relative? Is that my concern? He chose to do that. That is not what will give me food for my wife and my children. No. It is by taking the opportunity to come and sit in front of you, trying to sell what is important. You see, I talked about the interest. Somebody is interested in that matter, and so he wants it to thrive. Somebody is also interested in what I'm saying and wants it to thrive. That is the beauty of democracy.
Okay.
That would be my answer to this.
Thank you very much. I like how quickly you went about this because I'll move on very
I
soon.
can understand the discomfort with discussing an issue that you do not have an answer to. You have this thing in law that when the facts don't support you, you run to the law. When the law does not support you, you run to the facts. If both sides don't support you, you bang on the table and make a lot of noise in the courts. That is it's a very logical answer to whatever is going on. This is a conversation the NPP just does not want to have. When they held their rebuttal,
you don't think it's a...
when they held their
hold
rebuttal,
on. You don't think it's a reasonable position to hold that this does not matter?
If the facts... let me state, if the law does not support you, you run to the facts. If the facts don't support you, then what do? You bank on the table and make enough noise so that everybody will forget about what the substance of the issue is.
Since you are talking about the substance, hold on, let me introduce Franklin Kojo,
okay,
who has taken his seat. Franklin, good morning.
I suspect that the camera lenses have captured me already.
Yes, but
people
don't know you.
So you're making it look as if I'm just a habitual late camera.
No, I didn't say that. No, I said you are sat down. I didn't say you are late.
The communication unit
my credibility
of the NDC. This is an election. I mean, we are already in the election period. We have a right to evaluate the current president based upon his promises, you understand, which are contained in his manifesto and for which Ghanaians voted for him.
Friends and family was in his manifesto.
Oh, yes.
Which page?
Oh, I'll give it to you. Don't worry. They promised that they were not going to run a friends and family
in the party manifesto.
Why show us the party manifesto?
Please, why? Is the manifesto only the one that is written? But with the policies that President Akufo-Addo gave, were the only ones that were written? He said it, and you yourself has confirmed it, that he said it. So when I say it's part of his manifesto, I mean his literal manifesto, both his spoken and written manifesto. He said it.
Okay.
And he said that,
you're a proper lawyer.
yes, he said that. He said that he was not going to run a friends and family. And you know why he said that? It's because he believes that breeds corruption. That if you have friends and family in government, what it does is that it does not allow persons who are otherwise qualified and who do not belong to that circle to be able to come in and render public service to the state. And also, because they are your friends and family, you will not check them. And that is why when the NPP kept making allegations that, look, there was corruption in the NDC government, or that contracts were being awarded to the family and friends of President Mahama, and for which they did not deserve, because he was running a family and friends government. So when you make the undertaking and when you give the promise that you are not going to do the same, and that Ghanaians should vote for you, and you would show them by example that you are not doing the same, and you are going, this is just part one. Let me just tell my good friends that the list is not just 55; it's more than 100. And so this was part one.
But let's also put Let's also put on record that some of the names that were on that list were proven not to be.
Who has come out
relatives
to say that?
And whatnot.
No, the thing is,
the
the
Rose
key word
Minister says he's not related to the president.
And friends. I want those who have been mentioned.
So who should he
to
appoint? His
state
enemies
by themselves. That so the point is this: this was not a press conference to deny. This was a press conference to justify. And I have no problem with that.
If the caveat is family, hold on. If the caveat is if you can't prove the family, but you can prove the friends. Basically, everybody in the president's government is his friend.
No, the point is this: if your defense is justification, I don't have a problem. It is a defense.
Okay.
So truth is, yes, I have a government that is made up of family and friends. However, the justification is that they are qualified, they were loyal to me. So, for example, they give the example of the finance minister who was on the streets of Accra campaigning for the president with his wife. He made financial contributions, stood by the president. I don't expect that he would deny him a position when he
So why is he on the list then?
He is a friend, and he hasn't denied. See, the thing is, the beauty about this particular debate is that
but the names you put there were put there as a complaint. So if you are making a complaint and you are here telling me that, well, he campaigned and he did what?
No, see,
what are you complaining about?
The point is this: we are reminding Ghanaians that whatever was said by the MPP was only said for them to be able to gain power, and that they are not different. One, they are not different. Two,
so they are as bad as you.
No, what they said was not true. The point we denied it, but we have come to give you proof that whatever this government said they were going to do, this is the opposite of what they have done, and we have given you evidence. The people who we listed, have you heard the whole week? Have you heard any of them come on radio or TV to come and deny that? One, they are holding a public position. Two, they either are friends or relatives of the president. In fact, the one example that was cited with the entire nuclear family, have you heard the person come to say that my father, mother, brother, and sister are not in government? Did you hear any of them come to deny?
So did he?
No, but perhaps they feel they don't need to.
Please.
Did
So
he promise?
okay.
Did he also promise free senior high school?
Calm down.
Truth is a justification.
Okay.
So if you don't deny and you say that it is true, no problem. So that next time you cannot come in 2020, I would want to hear the MPP come to tell us that when they come, if Ghanaians should vote for them, God forbid, and give them a second term, they will not run a family and friends. Now they will not have the moral authority. In fact, they won't even dream about ever pointing to the NDC and saying that, one, the NDC, the President Mahama appointed his family and friends, and that too, when they come, they will not do that. Because that debate is dead. By their own example, that debate is over. So it is important for us to highlight to Ghanaians. And we didn't just, this is not a press conference that you say, oh, we just threw names about. They gave names, they gave positions. In fact, this was an evidence-based press conference. When did you have their press conference? Did you see them coming to give you names and pictures and then that these people were not friends, family, and they know who.
And I'm like, wait for me.
Personally, this is my personal position. I have no problem. You understand? Because it will be ludicrous for us to think that the people who stood by the president to campaign, somebody like, especially like the finance minister, who put his own house as collateral for a loan for the party, and then the party comes to power, and you deny that person a keep. Who are you going to trust? So when we say that, you see, sometimes let's be the thing.
So you're saying the point of the press conference was to show the NPP
dishonest character of the party. That's all. The point is, let's be honest with our politics. That look, when we come, we are going to be human. We are going to behave like normal beings. That it is the people that I campaigned with that I'm going to move with in my presidency.
Points made.
That's all.
Thank you.
They don't even make it up. Because you see, one of the things that the NDC
you have to take Franklin's time now.
Sorry, Franklin, just give me 1 minute. One of the things that the NDC
it doesn't look like he wants to give you the time.
I beg you. Just 1 second. One of the things that the NDC suffered was the fact that President Mahama became the victim of all manner of accusations, which were completely unjustified.
Like?
Ibrahim Mahama was controlling 90% of contracts in Ghana. He was the unofficial prime minister of Ghana. When in this government, in fact, some of them are my colleagues, so I can't mention. I'm restrained from mentioning their names, But the very position that you claim Ibrahim Mahama was playing, we also have somebody who is playing that same position, and without whose approval, some things cannot be done in government. So today, when you say that, see, if the thing is the same, let's all admit that it was the same, and then let's move on.
Thank you, Franklin. I will give you last say on this, and then I will talk about ACP Agojo.
Well, first of all, I mean, politics is an interesting.
You don't get a say.
Politics is an interesting art, and I suspect that in this part of our world, both the good and the bad is usually thrown at each other in terms of the party politicking, to the extent that some yardsticks have been set in this country, where elections are basically won on a lot of what's the word I want to use? Extreme. Word is not coming, but I'm just trying to say that the extreme partisan positions, the very noisy nature of our politics gets reduced only to issues around corruption, and anything else that falls within corruption will be thrown at you anyway. So the moment you set a yardstick, in fact, the moment you fall for such yardsticks, then expect that your opponents may use the same thing to come after you. That is that for the Ghanaian politics, and if not Ghanaian, it's global politics anyway. And I suspect Trump has been accused as well for all manner of nepotistic tendencies. So for me, I'm sorry, but I'm not shedding a tear for for the politics of this kind of politics. What I think we should be aiming at, and I think that's the more loftier conversations that Honorable Achampon wanted to have, is about the issues of good governance, issues of good economic governance, which all ought to be applauded. But there's also another issue, which I suspect is gaining currency right now, is that we want to learn from our peers and learn from those that we started life with as a country. And one of those countries is Singapore. In fact, over the weekend, I was privileged to be part of a dinner for the senior minister came. And I think that even before the dinner and the comments that were made there, there's been enormous applause for the Singaporean model, which thrives on efficiency, thrives on meritocracy, pragmatism, and they say honesty. But the MPH model, that's what they say guided them. So in our quest to build a Ghana Beyond Aid, I've said it time with that number, that when I was contacted to submit comments, in the name of the institution. And I was specifically asked by the senior minister of Ghana that we should make recommendations akin to or with the standards in the Far East or Southeast Asian nations, including Singapore and Malaysia. I said, well, let's look at the indices that measure the relative success or otherwise of countries that are on these, basically measure these kinds of things. And indeed, I concluded by suggesting that, well, in the case of Singapore, we all know that meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty are the yardsticks. I think there's been too many references to Lee Kuan Yew, who says clearly that issues around basically nepotism, if you want to call it that way, are not supposed to be permitted in his government or in his administration, in his country, and that everything thrives and rises and falls with competence, efficiency, and indeed, if you like.
But it's ironic then that his son is such a high-ranking government official.
Exactly.
Not only his son, his best friend run the Ministry of Finance.
But that's true.
Completely, and still does.
That's true. So the point.
His wife was also given a portfolio.
Yeah, I guess there would always be exceptions. I suspect when the narrative is such that you're looking at excesses, that's my understanding of the NDC's conferences. If there were 10 people that could be identified, obviously I don't think there's going to be any trouble per se. But if they've narrowed down to that figure, and as they say, nobody has come to contest that, then
you have contested it. And you're not watching this press conference. Contested a lot of the names.
Okay, well, the point I'm making is that the point I'm making is that
Frankly, wrap up for me.
At the end of the day, politicians should watch what they actually say and promise, because it may come back and bite you, which is what the NDC seems to be saying. Exactly. That if you accuse the former of running a family and friends government, you don't want to be seen doing probably even a tenth. But if they've been able to show that figure, I haven't interrogated the figure, by the way.
That's
only
part
that I haven't heard other things as well. So I would plead that we should never at any point in time replace the Singaporean model of meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty with nepotism, corruption, and collusion. Because it doesn't work, and it doesn't matter which government is in power, by the way. But you see, these are all supposed to be permitted, isn't it? In the nature of our Ghanaian politics, it's going to get more nasty, by the way. So this is probably the phase one. As we get into elections, everything will be thrown at anybody in order to gain some political advantage. But I also admit that Honorable Achampon's point, really, is that we should assess the government also based on the delivery, the economic delivery, rather than this rather offside, if you like, considerations, which again has been brought to bear because of us offside politicking.
Thank you very much, Frank.
I'm glad you're not asking me to say a word about it.
Yes, but enjoy your coffee.
This childish foolishness that we have to deal with, it's a total and complete waste of time. So who should be appointed to positions? Family and enemies? How do you run a government with people you don't like? And
I guess the principle they are making, the point, and I thought what I said could have been clearer. They're also doing this because somebody else did it to them.
Yeah, so it's payback time.
And it's payback time.
It's just childish.
And I think that's the kind of politics we should not allow.
It was not childish 4 or 5 years ago. It's childish now.
Okay. It was childish then and it's childish
now. I will give Honorable Achampon the final word on this.
Lately, your good selves, our friends in the media, when we try to advance an opinion, the immediate phrase is equalization. So I think it is used in a negative sense. Equalization necessarily is not bad, but the premium placed on it is that it's a negative sense. For instance, the PA to the finance minister,
Mr. Bidiako,
he's not relative to the system. You see, I don't want to go into those matters. The current National Identification Authority boss was a public servant when I became an MP. And President Mills was the president of the country.
Okay.
President Mills, when he had gotten the man to proceed to leave office, said the man was not in his sphere of vision leadership for the country. So he could not work with him. So he had to let him go. You see, we must build a society, and we are discussing deepening of this dispensation we are in called democracy. And we are talking about inclusion. We must up the conversation. Look, Nana Bediatu's mother is not on government payroll. If it is evidence that my brother Nee wants me to say off, that is what the lawyer's argument is going to be. And that is not me. The political animal's argument is supposed to be. I must weigh the pros and cons of the debate and see which path I take. That is why I said, in recognition of interests, I will just go for which I believe will win me more marks.
You see, I like my friend. He started the conversation by not going into the specifics, so I also avoided the specifics.
And I think
took a cue from him. I decided I would test something generally without going to the specifics.
The plan of the NDC is to ensure that everybody mentioned will come out and say, hey, I'm not there. And then the news cycle continues.
Demonstrated that they have nothing more to offer. So this is where they want to concentrate their energies.
Well, they feel it's a significant case for them. Let's talk money. And if you take the front page of the Daily Graphic today, frankly, show...
Are we not doing Azoko first?
Hold on. Show the front page of the Daily Graphic.
Well, there are yam sellers invading the streets of Accra.
But the big story there says 53 fund managers lose license, and that is a story that came late yesterday, and it's a 20. It was in a 29-page document put out by the Securities and Exchange Commission of Ghana. Now, Honorable Setachapo has been talking about bread and butter issues. This is bread and butter for millions of people. So I'm just going to read the first few pages of this. I'm sure the names are now open to you, but there are quite a few big ones. Of course, I have no option than to focus on Gold Coast Fund Management, now Black Shield, because they are listed here, and they are the ones whose customers we have seen a lot of. They've been protesting almost every other week for the past 2 months. So let me just read a couple of the pages here for you, and then we'll take a break, come back, and then Sydney can take us down into the nooks and crannies of this decision by the SEC. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission has, with effect from today, revoked the licenses of 53 fund management companies. These actions were taken pursuant to Section 1222B of the Securities Industries Act 2016 Act 929, which authorizes the Securities and Exchange Commission to revoke the license of a market operator under any of the following circumstances, and it goes on to outline the 5 circumstances. Now, it goes on to say that with background, the SEC, pursuant to its mandate under Securities Industry Act to protect investors, maintain surveillance, monitor solvency, and protect the integrity of the securities market, carried out on-site and off-site supervisory activities, including the following: A, a review of reports submitted by fund managers; B, on-site inspection of fund managers; C, forensic audits; and D, complaints and hearings. The reviews and investigations identified serious infractions by the specified institutions summarized below. A, guaranteeing of returns contrary to the directive of the Commission; failure to honor client redemption request; failure to honor payment terms agreed at complaint hearings; failure to place client funds with proper due diligence and the requisite standard of professional conduct, evidenced by overconcentration of portfolios in high-risk institutions and related party transactions resulting in severe liquidity challenges; failure to segregate client funds from operational funds, and in some cases using client funds to pay for operational activities; closure of offices without following due process; persistent regulatory breaches, including failure to submit reports as required; corporate governance weakness with weak board oversight, poor accountability and override of investment guidelines, and or failure to monitor and inject liquidity to comply with required levels. All efforts by the SEC to get directions and management of the affected institutions to rectify the above lapses have yielded no positive results. Consequently, the liquidity challenges of these companies continue to deteriorate, leading to 21 of them closing their offices and absconding with client funds without due process, whilst those currently operating have severe challenges in meeting clients' requests for a return of their funds or investments. Given the increasing number of challenges facing investors in retrieving their investments and the challenges facing the affected fund managers, which in turn pose risk to the stability of the financial system, the SEC is sanitizing the fund management subsector through revocation of licenses in accordance with Section 122 of Act 929. And it goes on to list the companies. I'm just going to go through them as well. On list of fund managers who are not operating and whose licenses have been revoked, you have Alpha Cap Limited, Beige Capital Asset Management Limited, Cambridge Capital Advisors Limited, EM Capital Limited, Energy Investments Limited, From Capital Limited, Gold Rock Capital Management Limited, Heritage Securities Limited, Kamak Capital Limited, Kron Capital Limited, Mac Assets Limited, Man Capital, Mac Otley Capital, Mac Ellis Investments, Nickel Kingsbury, SG Royal Capital Limited, Standard Securities Limited, formerly ASN, Tico Wire Capital Limited, Ultimate Trust Fund Management, Universal Capital Management, and Western Capital Limited. Now, on the list of fund managers who are operating and whose licenses have been revoked, you have All Time Capital Limited. Now, that is a name that should not be new if you've been following the whole banking sector issue. So, All Time is one of the very popular names linked with the capital bank issues. Apex Capital Partners, Axe Capital Limited, Black Shield Capital Management, formerly Gold Coast Fund Management, Brooks Asset Management Limited. Brooks also should not be a strange name for those of you who, again, have been following the capital bank issue. Brooks is one of those linked to it. Canal Capital Limited, Corporate Hills Investment Limited, Dow Jones Financial, First Bank Financial Services Limited. And I've noticed First Bank have started reaching out to their customers via text messages since last night. Frontline Capital Advisors Limited, Galaxy Capital Limited, Global Investment Bankers Limited, Gold Street, Ideal Capital Partners Limited. Sidney, is that the same Ideal we know?
I think
okay.
It's related, yes.
Okay. So Ideal Capital Limited, Intermarket Asset Management Limited, Integrity Fund Management Limited, Cripper Capital Limited, Legacy Fund Management Limited, Liberty Assets, Monarch Capital, Mutual Integrity, Nest Capital, Nordia Capital Limited. That's another very popular name. Omega Capital Limited, Procap Finance Limited, QFS Securities Limited, Sirius Capital Limited, Strategic Hedge Capital Limited, Unisecurities Ghana Limited, UTRAC Capital Management Limited, Wealth Vision Financial Services Limited. Now, these are the companies whose licenses have been revoked or have been asked to cease business. Now, other parts deal with details as to what they did. But basically, it looks like the financial sector cleanup is far from over. And the question that everybody will be asking is, where again do these people go to get their money? Because we've seen what's been happening in the other sectors. The money is not coming through. So when we return, you hear from Sidney Kingsley here for the Honorable Seta Champong on this matter. You hear from Franklin Kujo and Nikpapo Samoa Ado. Keep watching The Big Issue. Welcome back to The Big Issue. And for those of you who want to send your messages in, 0549986996, 0549986996. That's our WhatsApp line. If you want to reach us on Twitter at Citi973, the hashtag is The Big Issue, or at East Sportsman. I will take your messages. So we are discussing the latest phase. We seem to never get to the end of the financial sector cleanup. Now is the SEC dealing with fund managers. And this has been brewing for a while because we've had several complaints of persons who are saying they could not reach, they were not able to access their finances with some of these companies. So, Sidney, I come to you. Here we are again. It started from Dr. Ernest Addison. Now it looks like Reverend Ogbami has also struck. 53 gone. But realistically, half of those were already not working. the ordinary person is suffering. What are we looking at here? What is the effect of this?
Let's paint a picture so that listeners can understand size, because that size is always important when you're doing financial matters. There were 141 fund managers registered and operating, 1441. Out of that, 21 had voluntarily stopped functioning and had already signaled to the SEC that they were no longer operating for various reasons of their own. An additional 32 have been acted on by the SEC. So that's how you get your 53. We are now left with 88 fund managers in the system. And you need to ask yourself that 88 fund managers, is that too little or too many? The reason why we need to do that is this. See, fund managers depend on people bringing deposits to them to manage. If you have too many managers in the system and they are chasing too few deposits, then the weaker ones are forced to cut corners like you're seeing now. And some of the corners that have been cut by these companies, a lot of them are very simple situations where they've mismatched the funds.
If you say mismatched, what does that mean?
When you take somebody's deposits, you owe them that money back. Then you take that money and you go and invest in assets like properties, manufacturing companies, certain SMEs, etc., where you expect that you will make a quick return and be able to get some profits so you can pay back the money that has been deposited for you. Where you have taken too much money and put it into assets, the assets are not recoverable. In other words, you cannot sell them immediately, or else they are not yielding enough money immediately. But you still have pressure on the deposits that have been brought to you, because people come in and when they deposit their money, they agree that they will leave the money with you for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, sometimes 18 months. When those repayments fall due and you haven't realized any income and revenue from the assets that you have invested in, you have what we call a mismatch.
Okay.
Your assets and your liabilities are out of sync. You have overstretched the assets to a point where you are not recovering enough to be able to pay for the what we call the liabilities, what you owe at the end of the day. And that is why generally fund managers tend to balance their what we call balance your portfolio, where you put a certain amount of money into assets that you can get cash quickly. And the typical one is treasury bills, where every 91 days you have the opportunity to get some cash back. A lot of them too will put their money into medium-term securities, say 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. And then the rest of it you put into different types of assets. The mistake that most of them have made, and sometimes it's not a mistake, it is deliberate, is they've put money into companies and assets that they consider will generate quick returns. A majority of them, when you look at it, you'll find that they invested funds into various savings and loans and other banks where they expected that there's a high cash turnaround and the interest rates are so high. So they would be able to get those to generate cash. In other words, they invested in businesses which they thought would be good cash cows. So that cash would come in to replace what had been drained from the funds. There are many, many examples like that. But predominantly, for the bigger ones, the infraction has been to take the depositors' monies and use that to invest in businesses for themselves. So we have what we call related party businesses.
Oh.
Businesses that belong to either their own family or maybe their friends, the friends and family syndrome. And they invest in that and expect that that will be able to yield the return, and they will be able to at least cash those assets in and get the money back quickly because these are relatives and close associates. So a lot of them, all right, have nepotically invested in assets, which should not be the case. Then there's the issue of governance, where a lot of them just simply did not set up a board of directors, or if they had a board of directors, the board never met. And sometimes when the board met, the board is composed of friends and family. So that decisions of that sort are already pre-planned and decided before they come and do the board meeting, which just endorses what has to be done. And they collect their checks for the day and they go merrily along the way, all right, to avoid issues. So all of those are varied depending on which company you're looking at. But if you look at the list, as you were going through, you were seeing that some of them are already now recognizable names from the banking sector fallout.
Yeah.
Some of them have already been accused of certain things and have already been sanctioned by the banking strictures. So when you mention companies like Nordia Capital, which is a fallout from the Capital Bank thing with Atuesian, when you mention All Time Capital, which is another one of those, when you mention Ideal, which is also another one of those, they are all part of this design, all right, to do certain things that were out of the regulations of the SEC and the central bank, the banking sector. Now, question we need to ask ourselves, who is going to rescue the depositors' funds?
Exactly.
And should there be an angel at all to rescue the depositors' funds? The arrangement between a depositor and a fund manager is a one-on-one relationship. Has nothing to do with any third parties.
Oh.
It has nothing to do with a third party. If you take your money and you go and deposit it at Nordia Capital, it's between you and Nordia Capital. See? It's a typical thing that we are doing with how the men's gold people are shouting at the moment, or were shouting some time ago, that government should come to their rescue and come and give them the money back. Government has not invited you to go and invest in anything. But you see, we are setting a bad precedent now, okay, that the persons who are committing these atrocities are expecting that anytime there's an issue, government is going to step in and bail its depositors out. When that happens, the person who has committed the offense is now left free, because you put all these assets under receivership to be collected, and nobody is prosecuting anybody for not doing the right thing. So government is most likely, if it wants to bring some peace and harmony to this situation quickly, because I think that on estimate, the total amount of depositors' funds in this instance that has to be shored up is about 1 billion thereabout CDs.
Okay.
So somebody has to find the 1 billion CDs. And now that is just a fraction of it. When you add up all the other funds, the mutual funds and all the other depositors' funds and everything else, I think it will come up to quite a significant amount of money. But I don't have a number, so I don't know what it is. And frankly, I don't really care what that figure is. Because at the end of the day, government might or might not step in just like it did with the banking sector. Big question, therefore, Kojo, is the people who have been affected by this, are they going to be complaining and banging on dustbin heads like the men's gold people?
Why don't they have cause to?
Because if you look at the profile of the persons who have been affected by this, most of them are people who have put in their savings, okay, for a future redemption, and their nest eggs have been put with these companies. Theirs was not for a quick turnaround.
Yes.
And a high interest. It's for long-term investment going forward. These are people who can afford to secure their savings on a long-term basis and not need to rely on it or depend on it today. So these are your middle-income persons and your wealthier persons. These are not your low-income earners who don't have that much savings to put away. So it's not likely that there's going to be a lot of hue and cry in the media. This is my view.
The Gold Coast people have been protesting at least once a week every month.
There's been a lot of them.
The ones who have been protesting in Gold Coast,
and there are a lot.
That with Gold Coast, a lot of the persons were putting in 20 CDs, 30 CDs here.
That's not true.
Very true.
Lots of people who have saved.
It is a fraction. It is a fraction of the total population of the people who have invested with Gold Coast.
But let me ask a question. Before I come to Honorable Akshampong. For a company like that, and let's use the names, Black Shield, now Gold Coast, they seemed to have put in place measures to, remedial measures to deal with what was obviously a very difficult situation for them. So even though their customers had been complaining, they seemed to be meeting them, trying to make payments. There were constant announcements, we are doing this, we are doing that. There is the court hearing so that they can get their money through the Global Growth Fund, as they claim, and then you up and shut it down. Really?
It's because if you take a piece of meat and it gets rotten, and then you put it into boiling water, saying, I'm not going to boil it and I'll sanitize the meat and make it available, it doesn't get any healthier. If you understand where I'm coming from. So whether you take what has happened at Gold Coast as a specific example and you convert the name, you change the name from Gold Coast to Black Shield, and you add a little bit of spice on it and say we've also been able to raise funds, you must demonstrate, all right? You must demonstrate that you've actually done something to resuscitate that business and go forward. On analysis and on interrogation, according to the SEC, that does not change anything. It didn't change anything.
Okay.
So in their opinion, Black Shield, Gold Coast, both of them, not going to work. Other companies too have their similar reasons why. But a lot of them primarily, don't forget that fund management is usually about the board and about the person who's promoting the fund. Okay? Your confidence in investing in a fund is because of persons you know who are behind the fund and who are running the fund. Okay? It's very different to a large extent from a bank, which is a corporate legal entity and which has more structures and more and more controls along the line. Big thing, though, in all of this, where is the regulator in all of this? Why is it that in the banking sector, this situation was allowed to go on and on and on and on until it came to a complete head? And we had to have this decision to collapse all of these banks. That's number one.
Okay.
The pattern and the underlying issues that have been put together by the SEC through their forensics and their audits and their whatnots is so similar to what happened in the banking sector that we need to be asking ourselves, where are the regulators in all of this, and what should be done? What action should be taken? Unfortunately, at the SEC, Owami Tete has only been there for 2 years. Predecessor was there when all of this was going on. Similarly, in the banks. Addison was not there when most of these things were going on. So Wampa and what's the other guy's name? Ishaku, all right, have to come and answer some questions as to how come the situation deteriorated to such an extent. And it is only when Addison came and started making these changes and started insisting that the right thing should be done, that is when we now have the cleanup that is going on.
All right, thank you.
So we need to ask the regulators questions, and government must tell us what it intends to do with regulatory authority going forward. However, don't discard the fact, the problem that government itself, politicians generally, are very, very culpable in all this. Because we have some seeming policy, all right, that whenever we are doing any kind of technical cleanup and trying to tidy things up, the politicians are the first to come in and say, oh, we cannot do that because of the political ramifications that it will have. And more often than not, there is a protectionist idea, all right, to try and safeguard the local institutions and to try and give the local banks and the fund managers some leeway in order for them to be able to survive within the system, albeit the same system that everybody is surviving in. Both the foreign companies and the local companies are all working in the same system. But we seem to think that we have to give protection to the local companies. To summarize, to conclude,
yes, please.
There are 88 companies left, fund managers. And the SEC have to make a decision. I did mention earlier, and I'm not sure whether I did, but there's a moratorium on new companies.
Oh.
All right? They are not going to set up any new, accept any new fund managements in the country for at least 6 months, whilst they clean everything up. That's number one. Number two, the minimum capital threshold, all right, is being raised from 100,000 cedis to 2 million.
Okay.
And that is supposed to serve as a means of safeguarding depositors' funds as we go forward.
Or something.
I think they will come up with with some kind of scheme. But it's not enough. 2 million is not enough. They needed to do maybe 5, maybe 10 million. All right? In order to ensure that when you are doing certain things that will mean you could lose your license, you're going to think twice. I think the 100,000 threshold was way too low, ridiculously low, that some people don't mind if they have to throw away 100,000 CDs.
All right. Sydney, your point is good. I need to take a quick break. When we return, you'll hear from Honorable Achampo, because he has to answer the question on how this is affecting the economy that his party runs. The Big Issue. Be right back. Welcome back to The Big Issue, discussing the fallouts of the SEC's decision to basically close down the businesses of 53 fund managers. Sydney has explained the technical aspects of this and what it means. Now we have 88 left. There's a 6-month moratorium. The capital is going to be increased to 2 million. But I must talk to the Member of Parliament for Empire, so the Honorable Seth Achampo, on this, because Honorable Achampo, the government is intent on fixing the economy. It looks like it's very intent on fixing what it says is a bruised financial sector. But this is a government that is also saying that it needs money. This is a government that is saying that we are running the economy well, has promised prosperity. Fallout of the banking sector cleanup is a lot of people don't have their money, so there's no money to spend. 53 gone, people saying they still don't have access to their money. How do you put the two together? You are fixing the economy, you want Ghanaians to invest in the economy, but the money they are going to use is locked up in these institutions. Jobs are also gone. It's a pretty hard situation you are putting yourselves in, wouldn't you say?
That is why I'm proud forever and ever to be a member of this administration. And the great party, the New Patriotic Party. Where everybody runs away, we stand and face. Why? This has been a problem which is existential. It has been existing in this economy. That's why we keep going in circles in this economy. We still ourselves many a time. And like I always say, if you've lived this country and with the advent of the media coming up high and you don't listen to the analysis, you get nowhere. Each and every moment you talk about enforcement. Do you remember that? So this is critical enforcement in action. And if we don't discipline ourselves, we talk about discipline. If we don't get that discipline, we're going nowhere. We'll keep having the conversations. And I always say, as Ghanaians, God has gifted us with oratory. We easily talk our way and walk on. But we don't get the business done. So I respect His Excellency the President. He's providing leadership. And the leadership is what we are seeing, walking the talk. He said he was going to fix things, and he's fixing things.
But there's a lot of pain.
No, listen. So how do you go about it? Should we live in comfort and still be wallowing in pain and others weeping? We cannot allow our country to go that way. The least we say, south of the Sahara, first to become independent, what to show. A while ago, offset and onset, we were discussing Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew could not get it all right by himself. He did it with the men in white. That's how they called themselves. It was a political movement. And they were resolved to stay behind him. And they did to win. And we are solidly behind the leadership today to win. How do we get it done? We must ensure that what is wrong is wrong. If depositors' funds are being used for operational activities, it is not proper.
So why must the depositor suffer?
The depositor, we want to protect. That is why we are allowing the enforcement to be in the forefront. Because when the depositor suffers, who eventually suffers? I'm sure last year, in the beginning of the year, we're all witnesses to the huge people who trooped to the streets, lambasting government, that you've allowed a fellow to abscond, and that you are destroying other people's business. We were attacked when this whole financial sector reform commenced, that we were destroying genuine Ghanaian businesses. Some of the people are very close associates or relations or friends of ours. But you must get it right. And the language is, it is what it is. We have to get some of these things straight and get it straight. It's a bitter pill we have to swallow. If we don't get it, we're going nowhere with this secretariat we are going to bring into our country for our region. After. Where are we taking these things to? People are measuring us based on how we are performing within. How are we deploying the internal mechanisms of regulation? And how are we ensuring that those regulations are enforced? So for me, I am for this. Because if we don't do this and it spreads and becomes cancerous, ultimately will hit us as a government. Because we will be pointed to that we were watching and we were caught ball watching. We were not responsible. We want to be a responsible government.
But shouldn't the government also engage the victims of this, if victim is a good word to use? Because like I said, for instance, Gold Coast people, they've been speaking for a long time.
Godfred, 2 people got me to sit in your studio. My party deputy communication director called me last night when I was almost home. I'm almost at the chamber. Where are you? I said, I'm almost home. Okay, tomorrow we are going to Citi. The Citi group is reaching you. So your producer reached me, and I'm here. I had to be in a funeral in Kumasi this morning. So they can only hear and watch me on television that the reason why he's not here is because he's sitting on television. I'm throwing this analysis. If you don't commence from somewhere, you don't get to the other end. The victims are being protected. That is why the consolidation in the banking sector had to take place. so that deposited funds could be protected. Other than that, if we allowed the managers who were managing and we were getting the mismanagement to die with the depositors whose funds they have mismanaged, we lose both. But you win some and you lose some. So at least we've lost the managers, but we're able to protect the depositors. So we've won that. Similarly, this is what is going to happen. It's hard. It is tough. Because some of the people who run these entities, I cannot prove, but I believe, voted for the president and voted for my tradition. But this is the bitter pill you have to face if you want to get it right. You don't have to be a populist. You have to be a realist. And every reasonable, rational thinking person who looks at the situation will point to you that it is difficult though, but I think we need to make progress. We need to work at it. And that is what I, as a politician, and a pragmatic one as such, want us to follow.
Okay. Thank you. Ni, you had issues with the manner in which
was implemented, not
the banking sector one was implemented. Do you have issues with this one too?
Oh, see, the problem is really about how, not the philosophy behind the fact that there's the need for reform. And even the new measures that were discussed by Sydney is even more helpful, because in the future we are trying to, what we should be doing is learning from the mistakes that have happened and giving us clear policies that are geared towards making it impossible for something like this to happen again. And if it should even happen, what remedies are available to protect the depositors' funds? You see, the problem that a lot of clients have faced is where you have 700,000, 1 million cedis, 1.5 million cedis saved over 10 years. You know, you have your salary, you put maybe 100 cedis or 200 cedis. I mean, people have really saved for 10 years plus, not investing in maybe building a house, but just wanting liquidity support for emergencies, health, related emergencies, children's school fees for college, have very important future issues to take care of. And because of whatever reasons, they are able to access these funds, and they are being given, some of them are being given 10,000 cedis, especially for the bigger deposit, 10,000 cedis and 20,000 cedis, not in respect of the fund managers,
yes,
but the microfinance and the banking sector. See, there was that initial belief that they were going to get their deposits, and they never got it. Now they are being given piecemeal, and some of them, for all intents and purposes, unless the government is able to secure some extra funding, they won't get anything. It's sad. And for those with the fund managers, it's even worse. You see, I think to some extent, Gold Coast has tried. They're looking at some of them are doing some barter. Some of them, they have tried to develop some strategies to try.
The generators and things.
For lower, for those with not too high. And then I understand for those with higher deposits, some trades have gone on, especially those who are in court and all that. But for the others, it seems as if they're not going to get anything. And SEC is also saying that, well, there's nothing they could do because they are not structured to, like the banks, to be able to appoint receivers and to be able to have some form of insurance. So it's a very serious issue, especially for the fund money, because you may not hear them being on the streets and all that, because maybe the person is a banker, he's still working and all that. But the amount of money involved in that sector is no joke. And so we cannot cry over spilt milk. It's happened. We can only plead with the government to see whether some form of assistance can be offered to some of these. Yeah, if you get even 50% of whatever you invested, or 40%, I'm sure it's better than nothing. You see, whilst in the future, strengthening the current fund managers, giving some form of, that's why I think insurance should come in, so that whatever happens, if you put your funds there for investment and something should go wrong, you would be, protected some way, somehow.
That's an interesting point, Sydney, because in other places we do know that some of these risks would have been borne by an insurance entity of some sort. We haven't heard of,
Maybe
that
as
happening.
part of the reforms.
I am not too sure.
Okay.
I even believe that in the existing rules and regulations, there is a certain security, insurance security that is available. But it's not a lot.
Yeah.
It is not a lot.
Okay. Because for the volume of monies that some have invested,
But going forward, we were in a session yesterday night with the SEC. It went on for quite some time. But I believe that the reforms that they are trying to put into place will certainly make the regulation a lot more strict, and it will certainly safeguard the depositors a lot more. With everything that has happened so far with the banking sector and this fund managers and the savings and loans, the microfinance, there is an emphasis to try and safeguard the depositors' funds a lot better as we go forward. But even more importantly, there is this push for financial knowledge that the average depositor has to get a little wiser with where they put their money, and also to have an opportunity to be able to seek the services of financial advisors in order to make sure that they put their money properly. But that also means that the banking sector regulator, as well as the SEC regulation, have to be able to make available in the public domain information adequate enough for financial advisors to be able to say to Kwame or Kofi that, hey, listen, this particular bank, be very careful. It's not blue chip. There's a little red flag against them because of this, that, and that. And so if I were you, I'll put my money here first. And then later on, you can always liquidate and go somewhere else. So to be able to make those kind of decisions, the SEC and the Bank of Ghana have to make available information that will enable persons, financial advisors, to be able to give the knowledge to the unsophisticated and, unsavory
clients.
Depositor.
All right, hold on. Let me come to you, Franklin, for your take on this.
Well, I mean, a lot has been said, but one thing that is intriguing is that there seems to be a paucity of, should I say, profitable businesses for people to invest money in.
Really?
Well, clearly speaking,
there are a lot of startups in this country who are crying for investors.
Startups are the most dangerous things to invest in.
But that's what it is.
Yeah, but
it's a risk.
Sorry, Franklin. Everywhere in the world, everybody is very, very wary of startups. It's only angel investors who assume that they will lose their investments, who actually support startups in a big way. But then there's always the Silicon Valley type, startups where you might put in, $10,000 only to find out that suddenly within, a year you're a multimillionaire. Yeah. That's a different scenario.
Yeah, okay.
But generally, startups are a difficult consideration for any fund investor.
Well, so the way I see it, one of the long-lasting solutions to this is not these rather what I call financially cosmetic arrangements, which are not anchored on the productivity of the economy. Because point is, if I had faith in a number of establishments that are supposed to be on the stock exchange, or whatever exchange we have, and that they have potential, we must have that information to be able to go and invest in them, rather than focus on keeping monies with small fund managers who are looking to invest in entities, make investments that are not going to yield any significant, should I say, profits in record time. most of what Sydney refers to, that some of these fund managers had to invest money sometimes in government assets or as a way of being liquid, or sometimes in real estate, which obviously is not a lucrative market, but given the fact that it's not so, what's it called? Yeah, it's not really lucrative. It tells you that we may probably be looking at a much bigger solution to all of this, which is to build an economy, and not necessarily by politicians, but to build an economy where participants in the economy themselves are enough absorbers of capital from everybody. But these participants themselves, be they companies, must also show a lot of mettle, and they must show that they can attract significant talent outside of their families and friends. Because it looks as if it's becoming a circus, really, the way we look at the financial sector growth and indeed the general economic health. So the way I see it, look, fund managers will only be successful if the economy itself is buoyant, and if the actors in the economy that are good receivers of these funds, I'm sure they would have diversified their portfolios in such a way that they wouldn't be caught off guard, or even if some of them did untoward things. Because as Sydney suggests, most of these guys had monies locked up in funds that were, investments that were not going to redeem themselves in record time. So the way I see it, clearly, there must be some intent. And maybe that's what the president wants to do with his industrialization policy. But I'm looking at something beyond that. We don't seem to have had significant startups that have a lot of anchor. So the economy is not too buoyant. So it's difficult, because if I had my money, I would be interested in looking out for companies that are going to invest in, companies that can outlive their founders, outlive their families and all of that, that are able to attract significant talent outside of their family circles, that I know that if I put my money here, this would outlive the owners of those businesses. And that would be a source of money for me, rather than look out for these entities to go and place money, and then they wouldn't have enough avenues to reinvest the money itself. So it's like a cycle. So whether you increase the depositors, the capital or not, we'll still come back to the same issue.
Yeah.
What we're having to increase the minimum capital in the banking sector to what? How much? 400 million. You watch and see. Most of the profits that are being posted are profits sitting on books, really. I mean, they are not necessarily things that have created significant addition to the economy. So it's still, I don't know how to put it, but when you listen to some news items from other parts of the world, there's significant progress in how businesses themselves are innovative, and which obviously is attracting significant capital. You hear of Ireland, and you hear about the technology space where people are attracting huge monies in order to turn around their businesses. Some I've never even heard before. So there's that lack of, I don't know, that entrepreneurial, I don't know how to describe it, but my point is, we seem not to have enough avenues.
It's innovation, Frank.
Innovation, exactly. I mean, we don't seem to have enough avenues to do this, to invest. So maybe we should take a look at that and see how best we can diversify our portfolios. I would be interested in a business, maybe a sports business that I know is going somewhere. And wouldn't be hijacked.
I'll be calling on you very soon.
Yeah, but then I need to be sure that you won't do me going around the way. You know that.
But Sydney,
that kind of thing.
Is that interesting point that Franklin has raised?
So we are interested in investing in, quick fixes.
Yes, that perhaps our stock exchange also is not, because it's not that strong, it's not helping out.
It's not growing either.
Maybe they should look out for.
That would have been a good place.
There are people doing things that could be helped.
One of the things that they were complaining about us not having companies that have outlived the founders. We don't have companies
succession.
So that you have this maybe company that is there. It has 3-4 generations. It's listed on the stock exchange. You know that if you invest, even your children's children will benefit. And stable and all that. Maybe we'll get there. When we stop all these.
I want to take a few messages and then ask Honorable.
I thought you would indulge me to just have a little bite on this before.
Please do.
Let me just say this.
Let him have a bite. You've had a lot.
No, he will. This segues on what Franklin segues on what Franklin was saying. You see, yesterday an interesting conversation came up because we were giving some sweets, as we usually do
at these meetings.
I was eating the sweets and I suddenly said, who's making these sweets and where did they come from? So I took a look at the label. It's imported from Spain. All right? It's imported from Spain. And I said to myself, what volume is coming into the country? And where is it going? Hotels, restaurants, stuff like that. But sweets, sweets, when all we need is a little sugar, a little additive, and something.
Even our rice.
Yeah.
Nigeria, if you go to Nigeria now,
you will only get local rice.
I'm doing local rice.
See, so it is exactly what FC is saying. It's the innovation and the creativity of taking something that can be substituted and doing something different with it. I asked the question, who is looking at the kenke? All right? Kenke that we are eating is a huge industry. All right? From the production of the maize to the boiling of the kenke and the delivery. Huge chain. But who is looking at kenke and saying, I can present this kenke differently? I can do this kenke in such a way that it will become more attractive.
It costs $5 actually.
No, but in traffic you have the kenke fish and the shit top pack.
But nobody's buying.
The whole idea of business.
No.
Let me take it.
I just wanted to one critical point, which I remember SEC included in their release, was the panic to other depositors here in respect of protecting the existing fund managers who have not been touched. The panic withdrawals, because, and you see, this must follow a history. In this country, we've had history of challenges with the financial sector from time to time. I think it's after every decade we have one. Every decade there's a major one that comes. So there's that culture and that history. So we need to have more advocacy. And like Sydney talked about, financial knowledge. Its essence, very, very crucial. So I would encourage people like you who periodically do that sort of education to heighten and deepen the conversation. But besides that, I would... No, it's very necessary. Okay. You have no idea what those advocacies, how far it goes, the people who tune in to listen to, because those are the moments people are just maybe at lunch break and driving back or walking back and they have their headsets, they listen.
And those little tips could perhaps...
It helps.
Something Sydney says as well, which ought to be added to the financial literacy that we ought to have in this country, is beyond reporting the big headline news items in business. Maybe news houses and maybe with a number of professionals must also start looking at small groups of people, SMEs, that are doing innovative things. I know Citi does a bit of that. And then see how we can bring them up to scale. So that when people get to know that these entities exist, rather than going to put your money somewhere and hope that somebody will manage it properly for you. I'm not saying banking is bad. But if after every 10 years you're having this kind of challenges, it's not just an issue of financial literacy, as in people do not know where to put money or they should know their rights here and there. But it's also about the nature of the economy itself, trying to innovate itself in such a way that people can feel comfortable in looking out for other alternatives for investment, rather than just focusing on the big ones. And the big ones usually will be the multinationals. On the businesses we have, the big ones you guys refer to most of the time are either politicized or they are small family run, even however big. We need to move beyond these entities and look out for creators within the space. And And maybe that's where the Ghana Alternative Market Stock
yeah.
Exchange should rather be focusing on. Or the Business Development Ministry should be focused on building the assets of these rather interesting innovators or entities.
Look at the guy who was looking at the bamboo bicycle.
Exactly, Kwame.
Where has
and all of that.
Where has he gone?
People like this get noticed by the World Economic Forum, but then when you need them to scale, we don't get the support.
And then there was that guy as well too, who Horseman Shoes.
Horseman is still around.
People
but
were
like I say,
plastic
if somebody
into
could
fuel.
invest in that.
Yeah.
You know, we have people taking plastic into fuel.
A lot of innovative programs that are coming up.
You hear the
So
story,
I
the
really
media highlights it a
come
little,
along
and
with you
they
on
disappear.
appealing to our advocates through the media, trying to prop some of them. For me, they are the positive sides of the conversation.
And creating funds
and we need to really divert attention on such.
Yeah.
And then it will equally encourage in the transformation that we are all seeking to gain.
Yes.
Because for me, I'd rather invest in a local that I can run to look for my money tomorrow than a multinational. And looking at how corporate governance becomes an issue tomorrow, if I don't have a bigger muscle and a multinational has a bigger muscle and can just swallow me up by boardroom arrangement, I have no space. So I believe in an indigenous-driven agenda campaign, and then ensuring that we showcase them.
Maybe
they
we
may
should
not be
take this
perfect.
off of Citi.
You know,
They may not be
Citi did a little trade fair, fair, not too long ago. I think.
Yeah, we're doing OFY, as you
two or
know.
3 months.
We're doing OFY.
OFY means what?
Operation Feed Yourself.
Operation Feed Yourself.
Oh, okay.
But they did a fair at Alisa Hotel.
Ghana.
Yes.
What was that again?
And
We went there, right?
We went there.
And
there were very impressive.
stage?
There were very impressive.
I will give you the information after.
You know, there were very impressive products coming out.
Yeah.
I think ADB was there, and there was another bank. Can't remember.
That was the This Is Ghana trade fair.
This is Ghana, and people were coming up with new shoe designs, creams,
watches.
all very interesting product at the time. And that was where I met for the first time these guys who were converting the cassava into
the takeaway packs.
Into the takeaway packs and stuff like that. And I found it very interesting. I took some samples with me to try and see how long it would last and how heavy, you can use to carry it. But I think the younger generation is trying hard. The banks and the other financial houses are letting us down. They are not opening their eyes to the developing picture. They can't see it, and they are not prepared to take the risk in order to be able to move forward. So we have to seriously look at how we can put together funds, private equity funds that will seriously look at a lot of these innovative products in order for them to be able to champion the causes and move them forward. I think, though, that the answer lies in anything that is food related.
Okay. So you have 1 minute. I need to wrap up.
So food related is where we need to look at. All the products that are coming out from the food growing areas, we have to be able to convert them somehow into attractive food packages in order to make things work. I think that it is time for us to look at simple things like how the everyday person lives. Okay? What do you have for breakfast? A lot of people have kenke or banku or wachi or something, or cocoa. All right? But Cocoa King has not done as astronomically successful as one works. I don't know how he's doing now. In fact, I hardly see the Cocoa King trolley on the road like you used to. For some reason, didn't look like it took off. But I think people are bulking and having to pay 5 cedis for a packet of cocoa when they can pay 1 CD. So there is opportunity
in there, okay,
all right, and we need an innovation forum. The Cosmos has done very well with its innovation challenges that it brought up, and has got some very interesting ideas. But nobody is picking up those ideas and saying, let's give this one a shot and see how it works.
Thank
there
you,
are some
Sydney.
people who have developed this
Sydney, you have to
thing
wrap up.
for cutting the cocoa pod. You know,
I've seen that.
For cutting the cocoa pod in order to make it easier to harvest and dry the cocoa. But no investor.
All right. Thank you very much, Sydney Kesley. So let me just take a few messages and then we'll wrap up. Now, Nana from Ashoman says, Godfred, please confirm if Beige Asset Management is on the list. They have not been able to pay my matured investments since April.
They are on the list.
All they keep saying is they can only pay me back when their debtors pay them back, which wasn't part of the investment contract. Well, I'm sure you heard them. They are part of the list. Good morning, Citi. Can you help us know how the customers of these financial institutions can retrieve their hard-earned investments? Well, I suggest you get in touch with the SEC on this particular matter and they will solve your issues for you. You can go to their website as well and they have a lot of information on there for you. Good morning. Tell Nick Paposa Amuado that Gabriel Shedako has asked Sami Jefi to retract and apologize or face him in court. Lawyer Kwame Okufu also said he does not hold any government appointment. Tell him that nepotism is wrong and should not be encouraged. Let's get a law to manage it. So these are some of the messages that have come in. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Big Issue. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. I did this with Honorable Seth Achampong, Member of Parliament from Praso. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Nick Paposa Amuado back on the show this week. Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africans. Sydney Kesley Hayford, who has broken the news that when the time is due, he will contest. And so he's campaigning for a yes vote. He will contest for a DCE position when that time comes. Of course. Have a good weekend.
You didn't mention Awatri.